Hi, my name is Michelle Korecki, and this is my How-To Writing Unit Plan. This unit was designed to further students' knowledge of informative writing. We have previously covered an introduction to informative writing, and we also talked about author's purpose a couple weeks ago. This unit will focus specifically on how-to writing, since it is a type of informative writing. We will also make connections with everyday writing so the students can see the purpose of how-to writing and how it fits. The learners in this class are ELL students in the 6th grade. There are 14 students currently in the class. These students are considered my low-medium ESL students, meaning that they have access scores in the domains of speaking, listening, reading, and writing, and they have scores of 2 to 4. This means that most of them struggle with reading and writing specifically, as these students have lived in the United States for most of their lives, if not all of their lives. In the class, there are 7 migrant students that have previously not been in Illinois, and there are also 7 students that are returning to our program from last year. The students in this class are motivated and ready to learn, however they do struggle in reading and writing. The standards that go along with this unit are 2 of the WIDA standards, the ELD 1 and ELD 2. ELD 1 talks about the social and instructional language needed within the school setting, and ELD 2 is the language of language arts, which is why it's connected back to our writing unit. I also included the Common Core standard for informative writing, since that is our focus for this unit. The objectives are that students will be able to define informative writing and give an example of how-to writing, and the students will be able to write a how-to essay on a topic of their choice. The strategies that I feel go along with this unit mostly is the cognitive flexibility theory. And the reason I feel like this one goes along with this unit specifically is that it talks a lot about transferring knowledge beyond their initial learning situation. And since we introduced informative writing a couple weeks ago, I'm going to be asking the students to transfer that knowledge that they got in their first learning experience with it and put it into play in this specific unit by using it to create a how-to essay. I also feel that it goes along with it since it talks about how the learning needs and the instruction needs to be very specific. And this instruction in the unit and the student outcome expectations are very specific, and I give a lot of examples to the students of exactly what I want them to be able to do. The technology involved in this unit mostly is going to be their Chromebooks. We just went one-to-one this year at our school with the Chromebooks, so the students are still adjusting to using those in our classrooms. The final product will use Google Slides, and the students will be required to create a slideshow, which is something we have not previously done. We will also be using 2 different websites to further our instruction. I will be using Read, Write, Think to help the students build an essay map and do their brainstorming. And I'll also be using Padlet as a manner for them to give ideas for about the unit and how-to writing. So we'll kind of use that as a discussion outlet. The day-to-day description is that on day 1, we're going to start by building some background on how-to writing. And this is where we'll be using Padlet to do a KWL. So the first thing I'll do is ask the students to use the link to our Padlet and add some ideas of what they already know about how-to writing. We'll go ahead and discuss that as a class, and then I'll have them do a second entry with some questions about what they want to know about how-to writing. We'll also talk about if anybody knows the answers to those already, and we'll have a class discussion. After doing that, we're going to go ahead and review author's purpose using the PowerPoint we've previously used in the other unit, and make sure that we understand the connection between author's purpose and informative writing and how-to writing. We will be viewing a video on how-to writing to build some additional background knowledge. The students in this class don't always have all of the background knowledge that other students might have coming into class, so it'll be really important for them to see that video to add to their knowledge about this. And then to wrap up day one, we're going to go ahead and add what we learned to our KWL on Padlet and make sure that they have at least one thing that they now know about how-to writing. On day two, we're going to start by reviewing our KWL from day one and make sure that we're making our connections back to what we did yesterday. And then today's focus will be on viewing some examples of how-to writing. So the first example will be a mentor text of how to babysit a grandma. And we'll make sure that we're going back and making connections to that story and then also identifying the how-to elements. And we'll be documenting those on a Google Doc as a class. The second example will be a video example. And the students will once again be making connections and identifying those how-to elements. I want to make sure that the students have at least a couple different examples of how-to writing so that they completely understand what how-to writing is and then it can come in different forms. And our wrap-up for day two will be that we'll brainstorm some real-world examples of how-to writing as a whole class. For example, I'll be looking for things like recipes or how-to writing. Giving somebody directions could be how-to writing and things like that. That way the students are building up their knowledge of exactly what how-to writing is. On day three, we're going to begin the brainstorm process. I will start the class by modeling how to brainstorm and what we will be doing, what we will be using for this particular brainstorm. We'll be working on the essay map on Read, Write, Think. So I will go ahead and model for the students exactly what I'm expecting them to do on their essay map. So we'll talk about what is an introduction, we'll talk about what our main ideas would be, and then how to fill in those supporting detail boxes. We'll also briefly go over what is a conclusion and what type of conclusion would be appropriate for this type of writing. After we've done a model as a class, the students will go ahead and brainstorm with a partner about some different things that they know how to do and that they could write about. We'll go ahead and create a class list of ideas of things that could be topics for how-to writing, and then the students will create their essay map on their own on Read, Write, Think. On day four, students will begin writing their how-to essay on Google Slides. So before we do that, I'm going to model for the students how to make a Google slideshow and some of the basic elements that they're going to need since we have not previously used this before. So I'll go over how to create the presentation, how to add slides, how to change the background, how to work with the font, and things like that. After I've gone over that, I'll show them the student sample, and then I will answer any questions needed, and they'll begin writing their own how-to essay using their essay map and using the Google slideshow. On day five, students will finish their how-to essays, and on day six, students will present their how-to essays to the class. Differentiation for this unit will mostly come in the form of sentence starters. I have a handful of students that will need a little additional help by getting some sentence starters for them. The students that receive the sentence starters are the students that typically struggle with writing or with other language needs, such as students with language IEPs. So I will include some sentence starters like the ones shown on the screen to help the other students access the content in this unit. I would probably use the read and write tools from Google, such as word prediction, dictionary, picture dictionary, text-to-speech, and translator. I think the most appropriate ones for my students would be the picture dictionary and the translator, since they are ELL students. This is an example of the online resource site that I created for my students. The students will be able to view this at any time on their Google Classroom. And I went over the lesson objectives, as we will do with the whole class at the beginning of the unit. And then I listed some resources for them. I listed our class KWL, so they can go back and access that at any point. I listed the author's purpose PowerPoint that they may review. I gave them a how-to video example, and then our class list that we come up with of how-to examples in the real world, as well as the sample slideshow that they can go back and access at any time. I also included the unit outline for them so that they would know exactly what we would be doing. On this slide, I show two of the student handouts that I will be giving to students. The first one is a complete outline with different steps throughout our author's or our how-to writing assignment. These are links to things that we will need to access throughout the unit for the students to complete. I also included our how-to writing rubric. I will be looking at 4 different things when I'm assessing their final presentation. I'll be looking at what they included as the how-to writing elements. I'll be looking at the comprehensibility of their writing. I'll be looking at the slideshow presentation, and I will be looking at their presentation as well. This first example is an example essay map that I would expect from a student. This one's on how to make a PB&J sandwich, and it has each part filled out so the students will also know as an example of what I'm looking for. And then this link is to an example slideshow. I'm looking for the students to have a title page, an introduction. They need to include a materials page, and then also a slide for each of the steps necessary in the process of their how-to. And they also need to have a short conclusion. I put this unit plan as part augmentation since we'll be using Google Slides. This unit could be done using paper pencil. However, I feel like by using the Google Slideshow, we are improving the effectiveness of the unit and also allowing the students to enhance it a little bit. Students will not only be able to type, and they will also be able to add a lot of visuals that will help their presentation become even better than if they had done this in part on pencil and paper. I feel like the other part of the lesson of the unit is modification, because they are doing a common classroom task, but they're using the computer technology of Read, Write, Think, and this is something that will help them brainstorm their ideas, and it also modifies the lesson from what we had originally do, because it's very specific in what I want them to do online. For the evaluation for students, I'll be using the how-to writing rubric and looking at the 4 elements. I'll be looking at how they did their how-to writing, how the comprehensibility of their writing, the presentation of the slideshow, and also their student presentation. To evaluate the effectiveness of the unit's design, I'll be using a Google form, and I'll be asking questions such as, how did the technology help the students? Did it make it more difficult? What would they want to change about the unit? And then I'll also have them talk about how the project helped them become a better writer and have them explain that as well. And that is my how-to writing unit plan.